Well, a hard-fought battle, that is for sure. The Canucks lose in a shootout 3-2 to the Edmonton Oilers after battling back down 2. We've got a lot to go over tonight. We're going to go over scoring summary, game pucks, plus minuses. You know the whole drill from last year. We'll also take your input as we go along. Hope you guys enjoy the show. Well, Oilers 3, Canucks 2 here on opening night. The Canucks do manage to salvage a point in a game that they probably shouldn't have based on how the scoring result was halfway through the third period, but a hard-fought, valiant effort and 2 big defensive goals come through for the Vancouver Canucks and at least salvage a point. So not everything lost for the Canucks, and being on this road trip, if you can go out and you can pick up 6, 7, 8 points in a 6-game road trip, you are laughing. So stealing a point from Edmonton, especially with the way the score was, like I said, after the first 2, is not all bad. So in this little post-game show, we've got some stuff coming up here. We're going to go over the game summary, kind of like my old videos from last year, this being my first sort of post-game live stream. Then we're going to go over my pluses and minuses for the game, my game pucks, some standings, the upcoming games, and of course, we'll get your feedback later on in the show as well. We're going to try to get this to go for about 30 minutes. I can ditch these now, and let's talk about the Canucks starting off the season with a single point against the Edmonton Oilers. And first, it's the game summary. The game summary is something that you know and love. In net, we have Thatcher Demko, we have Mike Smith, and Mike Smith was an absolute monster, and I guess so was Demko tonight, both of them being just absolutely excellent. And of note, in this one, Vasily Podkolzin making his NHL debut. We'll talk about that later in the plus-minus section. But in the first period, you know, the Canucks started really strong in this game. We saw them come out first half of the first period. They looked like the better team, had the edge in shots early, but about halfway through, they let off the gas a little bit. We had Edmonton piling on the pressure in the later stages of the first, and it finished with a Jesse Puljujarvi goal with about 3 minutes to go in the first period. He was wide open, all by himself in front. A myriad of defensive lapses. Most people were very quick to throw the blame at Tyler Myers. Lots of people then went back and looked at the video. Harman Dial was sort of the one that started it with his little film analysis that he copied me doing. It was really Chiasson's fault on that one. Chiasson basically bit on the Connor McDavid skate around too early, left his man Darnell Nurse, who was able to find Puljujarvi all by himself in the slot. Just kind of a disaster on all fronts for the Canucks there. And it's 1-0 Edmonton early on. When we go into the second period, though, the Canucks were flat-footed. You know, after that Puljujarvi goal, they pushed back a little bit in the first period, late in the first. They tried to bring this one back, and then they come out after the first intermission, and they looked kind of slow. But they do end up getting a power play after a Cody McLeod penalty on a slash on Tucker Poolman, and this was a rough power play. We had JT Miller missing 2 passes that end up going all the way down the ice. He then tries to do it all himself, coming back in to make up for it, and he gives the puck away. Power play never really gets set up. And then a few minutes later, Oliver Ekman-Larsson gets the Canucks' first penalty of the season as the sort of crackdown on cross-checks begins. Pretty weak cross-check sort of in the bottom of the back, what the league is trying to crack down on. But this penalty kill looked really good. We had JT Miller really avenging his power play mishaps. We had Jason Dickinson coming out and showing why he's a really good defensive center and actually doing really well on the penalty kill there. And we had Kyle Burroughs also really impressed me on this penalty kill as well. And then Connor Garland had an amazing chance here. Kyle Burroughs down the right wing with a beautiful little sort of like a shot pass when you try to, you basically shoot for a tip. Garland gets a piece of it, but Mike Smith was just all over it. Garland sort of took an extra stab. Smith got angry. Smith is always angry, so that's not that very surprising. But then right after that, Kyle Yamamoto, wide open breakaway. Like, I'm talking wide open. He's got 6 strides between him and the next guy back. Don't know what happened there. We'll look at it in film analysis tomorrow. There's your sneak peek. But Thatcher Demko, little glove side, really good stop on the shot from the hash marks. And then the highlight of the game happens. 7 minutes to play, second period. Let's set the scene. Duncan Keith going into the corner to pick up the puck, kind of his head down, facing the boards, makes the pass immediately as he turns, and there is the $6 million giraffe. Just puts the shoulder right through the chest of Duncan Keith. A hard, clean shoulder, literally textbook hit, and it was absolutely beautiful. Colton Sevier just immediately jumps on Myers. It was a clean hit, but you know the way it is in hockey. Immediately jumps Tyler Myers. Myers just beats him up, like 4 good punches while Sevier's still barely on his feet. And then the entirety of the city of Vancouver stood up and gave a good little golf clap to Tyler Myers on that beautiful, beautiful hit. And the Canucks got a power play out of it because Sevier took an instigator. So Canucks on the power play. Chiasson gets stopped on a prime opportunity and tight. Basically had all the time in the world. And Oliver Ekman-Larsson had a decent chance as well. But then the Canucks get hit by the historic too many men penalty, which has plagued this coaching staff. The Canucks, they mentioned on the broadcast, had 10 bench minors last year, which was like 4th in the NHL. And they started out the season with another one here. And you can't afford to do that against this Oilers power play. And it results in a beautiful tic-tac-toe. McDavid, cross ice to Draisaitl, cross crease to Zach Hyman, who pots his first as an Edmonton Oiler to make it 2-0. Canucks did get a power play with 42 seconds to go. Nothing doing there. Shots in the second, 12-11 for Vancouver. A much more even period, but the Oilers still have the 2-goal lead. We go into the third. Canucks on the power play, 6 minutes in, a dumb penalty from Chris Russell, absolutely crushing Tyler Myers in the back, taking out his own goalie. Mike Smith dies in the crease, and then he gets up, screams at the ref. Tanner Pearson's like, that was your own guy, buddy. Canucks go to the power play. Canucks getting some solid chances on this one. Chiasson had the best look, basically sitting next to the net with a ton of space, but he got stopped by Smith. JT Miller had a good look as well. Oliver Ekman-Larsson was on power play 1 for some reason. Everyone was complaining, but Hughes ended up being on power play 1 on the next power play. And then power play 2 came out. Höglander had a decent shot from the point after a faceoff. No one could beat Mike Smith. And the Canucks get another power play. Connor Garland doing some nifty little spin moves, end up getting taken down, little can opener from Tyson Barrie. Power play 1, can't get anything going. They're just kind of scrambling all over the place. Power play 2 comes out, and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, who everyone has praised in the preseason and in training camp for just being able to get pucks through to the net, gets a puck through to the net. It hits the stick of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, ends up going to the blocker side of Mike Smith. It's his first as a Canuck. The team is right back in this one, and they didn't give up as Quinn Hughes, about 5 minutes later, sneaks into the zone. Mike Smith can't see him because the defender's sort of right on him. A sneaky shot gets right through Mike Smith, and we are all square. So we go to overtime. Mike Smith was insane in overtime. Tanner Pearson with the chance of a lifetime. Horvat feeds him as he cuts in across. And whenever you do sort of these one pass coming here, and then the pass comes, and then the guy coming across the crease gets it, and then he goes immediately to the backhand and tries to go 5-hole. That works almost every time, but Mike Smith was able to get the paddle down, the pad down, make the save, and we go to a shootout after Pettersson kind of scored after knocking the net off, so it didn't count. Draisaitl, Pettersson, no one scores. McDavid, Miller, no score. Barrie, Garland, no score. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins in round 4 beats Demko, so Horvat has to score, which he does. And then Kyle Turris goes out there with a quick little wrister 5-hole. Tanner Pearson fires high and wide. And that is it for this one. The Edmonton Oilers taking it 3-2 in a shootout. By the way, shout outs right here to Justin and Lucas with some super chats. I really appreciate it. I'll pull those up. We'll interrupt the flow a little bit here. Justin saying solid game for the Canucks. A lot of shots and great resilience. You'll take the single point. Smith was the difference maker. I agree wholeheartedly here. They did battle back. And that is one thing we saw a lot with the Canucks last year is games that they were sort of down and out of. They at least made them interesting. And then we had one from Lucas saying hard fought game, good game by both sides. We'll take the point and move on. Yeah, the Canucks are happy to get a point out of this one after the way it started. Let's go to our pluses and minuses for the game. If you don't know, if you're new here, my pluses and minuses are where I basically tell you what I liked about the game, what I didn't like about the game, just in a bit more of a fun term. Some of the pluses. Let's start on the defensive side. Kyle Burroughs, Jack Rathbone as a pairing. In my game day video, I didn't think they were playing because I saw the Brad Hunt, Luke Shen pairing, and I assumed that that would be the one that Travis Green wants to slot in against this high-flying Oilers team, but he didn't. He went out, bit of a risk, 2 basically rookies in Jack Rathbone and Kyle Burroughs, and I thought they played really well. They were good offensively. They weren't making a lot of mistakes. We saw some good Burrows play on the penalty kill. So I thought that pairing was pretty good. And I thought they both looked like they belonged in the NHL, not really getting caught out at all in most cases. My next plus, Connor Garland's got the spins. He drew a penalty off of it. He was able to get open ice. He's just really quick at pivoting on his feet. He's able to just do quick little button hooks to get away from people. It's something that we see from Quinn Hughes a lot at the point, but he's doing it more in the corners. I really like that. My third plus, the biggest one, Tyler Myers. Like I said, that hit on Duncan Keith, chef's kiss, absolutely beautiful. We love to see it. Thatcher Demko was a big plus in this one. I thought he played absolutely fantastic. There were quite a few chances where it's either Kyler Yamamoto or Connor McDavid or Leon Draisaitl, and these are guys who know how to put the puck in the net, but Thatcher Demko hung with them all night long. And my last plus, not hockey related, a big shout out to the Canadian men's national team in that huge game against Panama in World Cup qualifying. Excellent. That is my last plus for the night. The minuses, the downsides: 1, they lost, but hey, at least they got a point. 2, Niels Höglander playing on the third line instead of Alex Chiasson, and the Canucks brought in Chiasson to be a power play guy. However, he was on power play 1, which was a little bit iffy, sort of filling in for, I guess, Brock Besser there. And it showed that it wasn't Brock Besser, especially that one play where Chiasson was sort of at the bottom of the left-hand circle and had all day. Besser might score that one. Chiasson didn't, but I really wished we got to see more of Höglander because Höglander was absolutely fantastic tonight. So I expect that he's not going to be on the third line for very long. The Puljujarvi goal... And this is all around, right? The Chiasson mistake into the Myers losing his man, into everyone losing their man. Absolute mayhem results in Puljujarvi standing smack dab middle of the slot all by himself to jam home a rebound. Just a bad defensive play. And that's kind of it for my minuses. Honestly, the fact that they allowed a lot of shots, but they also had a lot of shots. It was a pretty even game all around. Not too much to complain about, but my game pucks for this one, every game we give out our game pucks, which is my player of the game for each team. For Vancouver, it's Thatcher Demko. I thought he was really, really good. Stopped 3 of 5 in the shootout, and just was really solid all game long. And Mike Smith. I thought Mike Smith was the best player on the ice for the Oilers. He, other than the 2 goals late, but the OEL one was tipped. The Quinn Hughes one, he didn't see at all, which he probably should have been a little tighter on his post, but one mistake in a whole game where you allow like 37 shots. I think Mike Smith was absolutely excellent as well. So that's my game pucks for this one. We have 2 more quick segments. If I pull this back up, what are they? Standings and upcoming games. Normally I'd have a sort of standings thing pull up here, but since this game went to overtime, it messed them all up. But the Canucks basically moving into a tie for, or I guess they'll be all by themselves in 4th place. Anaheim, Vegas, and Edmonton all won their opening game, so they're all at 2 points. We have Vancouver 0-1, perfectly at 500, right where they belong. Calgary, LA, and San Jose have not played a game yet, and Seattle is in 8th, 0-1, which is the new Canucks division rivals. Upcoming games for the Vancouver Canucks. Oh no, I messed it up. Let's hide this and this. And our upcoming games, I broke. Just kidding, they're right here. Upcoming games for the Canucks. They take on the Flyers Friday night, 4 p.m. Of course, we'll be live after all of these at 6:30 or so for that one, maybe closer to 7. Canucks and Red Wings back-to-backs on the Saturday. Clay's going to be doing a 24-hour live stream as well, so that'll be fun to swing in for. And the Canucks and Sabres next Tuesday at 4 p.m. And that leaves us with your thoughts. We've been going for about 14 minutes. My plan is normally to treat the first half of the show by doing what I used to do in my old videos. And if you missed any part of it, it's YouTube. You can always rewind back to the beginning, or you can catch up later on. But it's time to get your feedback, your thoughts on this game. So feel free to leave them in the chat. I know you guys have been great. I have a lot to catch up on here, but I'm going to try to pull some things out. We had Tuck saying that Smith bailed them out, and I'm actually going to hide this, and I'm going to hide this. We have Tuck saying that Smith bailed them out, and he was absolutely excellent. Hagum saying Smith flails like a fish. It's ridiculous. Yeah, he likes to exaggerate a little bit. Gary saying Höglander looked good tonight. I absolutely agree, and Höglander deserves the all caps you are giving him there. That would be excellent. James, welcome James, saying, I'd like to see any hit in the next 81 games as good as that one by Mizey. That was so wheat. I totally agree. That Tyler Myers hit was absolutely just excellent. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. L Jim wondering why OEL wasn't in the shootout. And that's an interesting call. I mean, Tanner Pearson has been in shootouts before. I don't remember how good his record is. But yeah, going with him, OEL has been good in shootouts in the past, but that's a ways back, right? I'm sure that after Canucks practices, morning skates, they do shootouts, and they did a couple in preseason. They did a couple in training camps. They tried guys out to see who's good in the shootouts. They prepare for these, and they usually just pick the best guys from practice to go out in these ones. Let's see what else we got here. James also saying, love that our top D get both goals. Yep, that was really good. That's definitely a good sign that we're getting some offense from the defenseman, especially OEL, who I was worried about coming into this year based on sort of his history. But he was pretty good tonight, I will say. Edits, imagine being pointless like Seattle. I agree. Haha, Seattle. Canucky saying he thinks OEL and Garland played amazing. I think Garland played pretty good. He had a couple of iffy plays, but I think he showed a lot of potential and that he clearly wasn't used to the team yet. And I thought OEL was pretty good. Rome saying that the Canucks look really nonchalant in the overtime and shootout. As for the overtime, we've seen things evolve since the beginning of the 3-on-3 overtime days, right? It used to be high flying back and forth 2-on-1s, and then coaches realized, 2-on-1s are scary. So let's just try to get the puck and not let the other team have it, because then we're the only team that has a chance to score. So overtimes are always kind of boring. But yeah, they didn't really get many chances other than that really good one by, was it Pearson? Tanner Pearson in that one. Let's see here. Gary saying he would have put Podkolzin instead of Pearson in the shootout. That's an interesting take. I wonder if he struggled in the shootout in practice, or if Travis Green maybe thought the moment might be too big for him. I'm not sure there. Agam giving a call out to Juho Lammikko. I agree. I thought Lammikko actually looked pretty good in that fourth line role. He didn't play a lot, probably something like 10 to 12 minutes, but I thought he looked really good. You're saying JT Miller is your minus. I thought Miller looked okay. He just seemed to be fighting the puck a lot. The puck just didn't want to stick to his stick, and that was giving him trouble all game long. Moral, not a bad game. Not regretting getting up at 4 a.m. for that one. Well, welcome from, I'm assuming, Europe. Thank you for tuning in, and good morning to you. Let's see here. James saying that Garland had several chances but kept slipping and falling. Yeah, that was a bit of an issue for Connor Garland. Agam saying that Demko might want the Turris one back, referring to that shootout goal where he came in just a quick shot 5-hole. A really quick release from Kyle Turris, and that was what he was good at in junior and in his young career. Was he had a quick shot that really helped his game out a lot. And we saw that there. Just if you can get a shot off before the goalie is ready to save it, that will give you a big plus there. Timmy the Tambourine. Does it make sense to swap Miller and Höglander? I don't know. I'd be a little hesitant to do that. I think you got to move. I think you got to start stacking those upper lines, especially because the Canucks forwards weren't able to score tonight, right? You saw both goals came from the defensemen. Both were kind of fluky, right? Like the OEL one got tipped. The Hughes one, Mike Smith never saw. So I think you want to sort of bring the offense up to those two lines. Give yourself, 35 minutes of the game at 5-on-5 where you have the best players on the ice. And I think moving Höglander up and maybe bringing a guy like Chiasson down, or if Besser is ready, God willing, for Friday night's game, then, that starts to alleviate that issue a little bit. Time for Hockey with an interesting take saying Höglander will be on the third line for the whole season because of how good he makes that line. I would agree with this if the Canucks are scoring. And again, it's one game. It's way too early. We shouldn't overreact. But if the Canucks do end up having scoring troubles, then they're going to want to start stacking lines, right? We saw with Edmonton, they put McDavid and Draisaitl out together because they are worried about having trouble scoring because they don't have a lot of scoring depth. So they put those their beasts all together to try to maximize their time on the ice. Last resort saying I would like to see Höglander on the second line when Spencer gets back. First line, go the Lotto line, and then Höglander, Horvat, Garland. I like that too. And then it's not like your third line's bad after that, right? You're talking about something like Pearson, Dickinson, and then insert player here, whether it's Tyler Mott when he comes back or Podkolzin. And you know, that's still really solid. So I think this is what will happen if the team gets healthy. The problem is the Canucks haven't been healthy very much lately. So it's really going to mostly come down to that. Aisha's missing the lotto line real bad. I agree there. Tuck saying Podkolzin needs more time on ice. Yeah, I think we were expecting him to basically get 10 minutes a night for the first few games, and I think he was right around there. I saw he was at 7 minutes the first little bit. I can actually have it pulled up here. If I go Podkolzin, time on ice, ooh, only 7.5 minutes. I guess, you know what, the Canucks were down a goal and 2 goals in the last 10 minutes, so I guess that's why the third line and fourth line probably didn't really see any ice time, so I do kind of get why those lines weren't played. However, I would like to see Podkolzin get more ice time earlier in the game, but when you're in a game that the team is losing, getting people ice time kind of flies out the window. You're just going to be getting your best players on the ice as often as possible. Edmund asking, which Canuck could have done better in my mind? I think JT Miller's sort of one of the easier answers, and it wasn't that he played bad or was thinking the game bad. I think the puck was just bouncing off of his stick a lot, and I don't know if that's really his fault or if it's just unlucky. I know sometimes you get out there and just bad puck luck. I thought Chiasson had that one really bad defensive lapse, and it's really easy to scapegoat Chiasson in a game where none of the forwards score and he was just freshly signed and put into the top 6 out of nothing. So he is very easy to criticize here. But again, I thought the Canucks did okay. Lucas with the take of, I wish they would take shootouts of the game. I was actually thinking about that when I was watching it. I was like, man, if the Canucks win, I'm going to go on my show and be like, yeah, shootouts are the best. And if they lose, I'm going to say, oh, get rid of shootouts. I honestly don't like shootouts that much. I would like it if overtime was 10 minutes and then call it a tie. And especially if they had a way to prevent sort of the possession-based overtime. Because if they were able to prevent teams from just holding the puck for 10 minutes at a time, then you could basically just, basically like no over and back almost, which would be kind of weird in overtime to change the rules like that, but it would make it more exciting. And you'd have almost every game end after 10 minutes if teams couldn't like back up into their own zone or something like that. Leo, I like this take from Leo here. Between 2015 and 2020, so 6 seasons, the Canucks went 5-1 in season openers. The 5 they won, they missed the playoffs. The 1 year they lost, they made the playoffs. They're on the right track. Wow, that is a hell of a stat. I love it. And let's get some positivity in here because that is an excellent, excellent stat. So yeah, boys, it's 100% guaranteed. Ladies, gentlemen, put in your bets. I already have my bet on the Canucks to make the playoffs. I think I bet like $25 on it. So go place your bets now. It's 100% guaranteed. It is free money. No, this is not financial advice. MK, worried that Podkolzin could get sent to the AHL. That's interesting. Well, there's a couple things to balance here, right? Does he make your team better on a night-to-night basis when guys like Tyler Mott, Brandon Sutter are back, and Brock Besser's back pushing people down the lineup? Podkolzin might be one of the first guys taken out, and it might be a balancing act of Travis Green and Jim Benning looking at things and saying, well, Podkolzin maybe isn't adding a lot. Maybe swapping him out with Tyler Mott is going to be sort of a lateral move. Let's send Podkolzin to Abbotsford where he can play 22 minutes a night and score some goals and become a better player and learn the North American game. On that angle, you might say, wow, maybe it's good for Podkolzin. If it's not going to make the team worse and it's going to make Podkolzin better, then sure, send him to the AHL. However, if you think Podkolzin is NHL ready, and if he, or if he goes and struggles in the AHL, it's sort of a balancing act. But I wouldn't be surprised if the Canucks became fully healthy, which is, again, a big if Podkolzin was one of the first people sent down. And again, it comes down to getting him time to play and him being exempt from waivers. Agam saying Pettersson was good, just lacked finishing. I agree. Pettersson came out first shift of the game and showed his hands, right? He made a little nice move to the inside and got a decent chance out of it. He looked really good. Couldn't finish. Yeah. And he's so picky about those one-timers. He had a couple of good chances. But I think Pettersson was really good. Looks like he hasn't really missed a beat. Just needs to be able to finish those plays and get some more shots on net. Marcus asking why they picked Pearson over Pods or Hogs, Colson and Hoglander in the shootout. Probably comes down to how they do in practice is my bet. However, yeah, I would have liked to see Hoglander in the shootout because he has just such good hands. Let's see here. Leo wants to take Chiasson off of PP1, which I agree with. Move Miller to the middle. Interesting. Or okay, on power play 1, I'm assuming. And promote Garland to be the right shot if Besser doesn't get back next game. That's interesting. I know that they really like Miller to be on that left wall because he's a good passer. But if Garland can pass that well and make good plays, then I wouldn't hate to see JT Miller in that, or Connor Garland in that spot. Shout out Armand with the super chat saying Canucks rock. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in. Let me scroll up and find where I was. Kevin saying this game was honestly so much more entertaining than I could have thought. Super excited when we have Besser and Sutter back. I agree. I was on the edge of my seat this whole game. And even from the opening faceoff, I mean, look, we looked at this game and we thought, okay, two teams with not great defenses and pretty good offense. This might just be a barn burner, and it was, right? So many shots, so many back and forth. And it was I thought it was a really good, fun game. And the entire overtime, I was not in this seat. I was standing up pacing. I was sitting on my dresser. I was just picking at things. Like I was stressed. And it's a good feeling. It's good to be back. I love having that feeling back in my life. And shout out HSM HSM Fangirl renewing her VIP membership. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. Moral, thinking a bit negative on Hughes and Pettersson. Maybe they didn't look completely in pace. They might need some more games. Yeah, maybe. I think, I'm hoping they'll get better with time. I thought Hughes was okay. And I thought Pettersson was okay. But again, neither of them were really taking over the game. Hughes, of course, with that goal, which is nice. And can really balance out maybe a not great performance. Let's keep scrolling here. Manuel says Miller looked lazy. I didn't think he looked lazy. I think he might have been trying a little bit too hard at times, which is what we've seen in the past from him. Noah saying he thought Poolman was great. Honestly, I didn't really notice Tucker Poolman all that much, to be fair, which is probably a good thing. That's probably a good thing. Lucas renewing his GOAT membership, saying 5 months as a GOAT. Keep up the good work, good stuff, Parker. I'm not sure you've been a GOAT for 5 months. I think it's 2 or 3 because I know I haven't had it around that long. I think it's bringing in your old membership, but we'll go with it. So thank you very much for the continued support. And Armand, thank you for joining the VIPs. I really appreciate it, guys. It's going to be a really fun season. And we have like 150 people in here, which is crazy after a loss. I didn't expect many people to tune in, but thank you guys very much for hanging out here. Let's keep things going, though. Antonio also agreeing, saying Pullman played well. Let's see here. Edmund saying, fair to say OEL played an amazing debut. Yeah, if you compare it to expectations, especially, my expectations of OEL were pretty negative, and I was really basing it on his last couple of seasons. And again, it's one game. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but I thought he played really well. Agam saying JFresh is crying after Pooler and OEL played great. Well, look, analytical models are based usually after the last few seasons, right? And Pooler and OEL weren't good the last couple of seasons. So, that's the best analytics can do. There's a limitation to that. And there's a limitation to the eye test, right? It's just extra supplemental information. JFresh even tweeted today. I saw it and he said, honestly, I hope OEL does well and makes me look bad because anchor contracts just aren't good for the league. And I agree with him. So I am really happy with at least their first game. Tuck saying switch Highmore for Colson. Why is Highmore getting more minutes than him? It's experience. It's trust. Trust is the big thing. Travis Green trusts Matthew Highmore. Matthew Highmore is a pretty good fourth line player, and he just has a bit more trust from the coaching staff. Justin saying, do you think Daniel Sedin meets with Jim Benning after tonight to discuss a Myers extension after that redemption hit like 9 years later? I love that. I wonder if Daniel and Henrik being a part of the organization has I wonder if the players think that and they see what Canucks fans think about Duncan Keith and they say, it'll probably make people really happy if I go and lay out Duncan Keith. Maybe that has a part of it. I doubt it. I think Myers just saw a really good opportunity to lay a hit and he stepped up and took it. Um, Paul asking Parker, anyone who you miss from last year's team? And welcome back. No worries on you missing out for a while. Um, I don't even remember who was on the team last year, really. I guess, not having Alex Edler, and look, Edler was kind of controversial near the end of his reign here, but the Canucks, could use some defensive help, right? Especially when you look at the defensive units and you see Kyle Burroughs getting his basically first handful of NHL games with the team. Having a guy like Alex Edler might help. However, Kyle Burroughs looked pretty good. Gary saying Besser was missed tonight, especially on power play 1. I fully agree. It's a big dynamic, right? Having that extra threat on this side, having Brock Besser there to just be an extra shooting option. So, because Edmonton could fixate pretty well on Pettersson being the guy who was going to take the shots. And I think that is why they put OEL out there, because he does have a better shot than Hughes, at least better at getting it through crowds than Hughes. So that might have been one of the reasons they changed things up. But yeah, definitely if they can get Besser back, and I'm hoping he's back Friday or Saturday, that would be a really big boon for the team. Let's see what else we have here. Lincoln, one of our moderators here, saying, I'm very glad we made a comeback to shootout. Still got 1 point. I agree. Look, it was a valiant effort. And valiant's a word that I used a lot back last year, especially after the whole COVID outbreak. For the Canucks to come out, basically be on the back foot for most of the second period, to be down 2-0, even after playing pretty well, and to not get too down on themselves, right? To come out, they needed a lucky bounce to score 1, and then they used that to their advantage to grind at a point. And points are going to be crucial, right? It's going to take, 93, 94 points to make the playoffs this year. And most people predict the Canucks to be just below that or right around that. So every point is going to matter a ton this season. Agam saying he hates how the power play is so stagnant. Move around, please. This is a criticism I've had too, especially when you're in the same game as the Edmonton Oilers, right? The Edmonton Oilers are just moving. And I always talk about this, how it's just McDavid skating up, skating down, skating up, skating down. And they just keep feeding him the puck and he can just skate downhill on net. And the Canucks don't have that. Their Canucks main options are basically an umbrella. Pass it back between the top 3 guys at the top there, pass 1, 2, 3, and sort of back and forth, and eventually get a shot through and try to jam something home if you don't score on the shot. Brandon with a good take here. Will be nice to play a non-Canadian team. I was just thinking about that before the game. I forgot about it now, but yeah, the Canucks haven't played a non-Canadian team since the bubble. So over a year from now, they just played the Oilers tonight, an opponent they saw 8 times last year, and now they'll go out and actually travel to the United States, play a non-Canadian team, which will be fun to see. We'll get to see, was the Canadian division really bad maybe, and get to, compare against a Philadelphia Flyers team that looks like it might have a decent squad out there. Noah, would you keep Burroughs and Rathbone for next game rather than going to Hunt and Schenn? That is an interesting question. Part of it might come down to the matchup against the Flyers. The Flyers might be, a bit of a less offensively gifted team. But the thing is, I think you need to reward good play. And when you look at guys like Brad Hunt and Luke Schenn, they are your stereotypical press box guys. They are guys who can sit in the press box. Remember Alex Biega, how he could just sit in the press box for 4 weeks, come out, play 1 game, and just give it his all? That's kind of what Brad Hunt and Luke Schenn are, right? They're going to sit in the press box for a couple weeks at a time, and then they're going to get called in to play their 1 or 2 games, and they're going to do just fine. So I think you reward the hot hand. You put in Kyle Burroughs, you put in Jack Rathbone, because they played well enough to stay in the lineup. They didn't kill you. They played just fine, and build up some confidence, right? If they go out there and play a really good game, and the next game they're sitting in the press box, that can be a little demoralizing. So I think you ride them. I think you play them next game. Let's keep going here. I'm just reading through some of these comments, skimming them for the best ones, because you guys are talking a little bit faster than me, so I kind of have to catch up. Chris saying Garland has arrived. Not sure why it took Green so long to put him and Horvat together. Yeah, I thought Garland was good. This is, why is this something? I think this is Natasha, if I'm not mistaken. Petey's passes to Miller never worked last season. It'll be interesting to see how they turn out this season. Yeah, and honestly, for me, it's kind of the other way, right? We see Miller trying to pass across to Pettersson a lot on the power play, and it usually gets broken up. The Canucks are so dead set on this umbrella formation, which I think is fine. Just when it doesn't work, it fails spectacularly, right? It's a pass that gets broken up and it gets cleared down the ice, or it's a pass that misses somebody and then it gets picked up and cleared down the ice. So definitely something to keep in mind. Noah asking, when do you think Patan slots in? This is an interesting one. I don't know. The thing is, if people get healthier, you lose some spots. I was kind of surprised that he wasn't in the lineup in this game. Do I still have my lines open? I don't think I still have them open. It depends if the Canucks think they need to shake things up after this game or not, right? They struggled to score, but I think they played okay. So we'll see if they think it's time to mix up the lines a little bit. And he could slot in next game, maybe for a guy like Dowling. But if not, then I don't really see much room for him. Marcus saying Dowling shouldn't be on the PP. Kind of agree there. Was weird that that Dowling was on PP2 there. Manuel saying the exact same thing. Timmy saying he wants to see offsides removed from overtime because it opens the game up even more. That is a interesting take. That would be fun. I'd like to see it tried. I don't know if I'd like it or not. Let's keep going here. BL Tubes. If a penalty's called in overtime, overtime shouldn't end until the power play ends. This is a take that I had last year. Remember when Pettersson made that one move to the inside and he got tripped because it was like there was only like 30 seconds left in overtime and he would have had a free goal. I don't remember if it was last year or the year before. And I said it then. I was like, look, why does overtime just end if you because that means in the last 10 seconds of overtime you can do whatever you want to stop a goal? And we saw it here. The Canucks did take a tripping penalty with half a second to go and it didn't matter because they're going to a shootout. So yeah, I think it should be penalized a little bit better. Aisha saying, kind of wish we didn't start with a long road trip when we need to get so many new guys clicking. That's an interesting take. And Travis Green had the opposite take. Travis Green was saying, look, we need to bond as a unit. Let's get these guys on the road together for 2 weeks. There's no better way to bond. So I kind of agree with both ways. You might want the easier matchups in your home crowd to settle in. But on the other hand, look, they're going to bond. And especially if they play decently well, let's say they win 3 of these 6 games and come out, 3 of the next 5, I guess, and come out with 7 points, then I think the team is really grouping up well, and that might help them out. By the way, leave a like if you're enjoying the show here, and make sure you're subscribed for the next one Friday night. We're gonna cut questions off here, so stop asking questions in the next minute or so here because I do need to wrap up. I do have to work tomorrow, and I can't be up all night. Let's see here. Agam saying, Podkolzin is hard because you willed him over from the KHL. Keep him up to keep him happy. No more failed Russians, please. This is interesting, especially because you see guys like Vitaly Kravtsov with the Rangers basically asking to be traded. And you had guys like, what's his name? Kaprasov in Minnesota basically saying like, no, don't send me to the AHL and give me a lot of money. I don't see Podkolzin like that. I see Podkolzin as a little bit more North American, if that makes sense. Like, it's kind of a weird thing to say, but like he seemed to really want to come to the NHL and like whatever means necessary. And I think he's smart enough to see like, oh, I can go play. He hasn't played 22 minutes a night since when he was in the junior leagues in Russia, right? Because he's used to playing 5 minutes a night in the KHL, right? Okay, I'll go to the AHL. I'll play 20 minutes a night. I'll get a lot better, and I'll come back up and prove you wrong, right? I see him more like that. He seems to just be a real battler. So I'd hope that is the route that he would take. Let's see here. Last Resort saying, hopefully Green doesn't mix up the defensive pairings too early. They need to develop chemistry before we decide how good they are together. I think that's fair to an extent. If they're doing really bad, then you need to mix them up. But they didn't do bad tonight. They did fine tonight. So yeah, I think you should keep them together. And I think everyone's sort of advocating for keeping them together. It's just whether or not you have that Burroughs Rathbone unit or the Shen Hunt unit in. Kai asking about Nick Patan. I think we already sort of went over the same question. Emirates saying, excellent game by the Canucks. If only they could finish. Yeah, it was a pretty even game. And you know what? The score ended up pretty even as well. It was really just a battle of 2 goalies dueling it out between Demko and Smith. Paul Kim saying, if Garland plays all 82, does he get over or under 45 points? I think that's a pretty good place to set the over-under. I'd go over. I'd say it'd probably be around the 50 mark, maybe 55. But I think that's not a terrible place to set the over-under. Marcus is not too sad about the L. Amazing game all around. Yeah, I agree. I'm going to type just cut off in the chat here so I stop, so I know when to stop on these comments once I get to that one. But thank you guys very much for all of you guys being in here. It's great to have almost 200 people in here on a Wednesday night at the opening of the season after a loss too. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. Edmund, what do you think of the commentary tonight? Yeah, so it was Harner Ryan who is the Edmonton commentator. He is a bit of a homer, which again, we look at John Garrett. He's a homer. However, being a national broadcast, it does kind of bug me a bit. I think he's fine. I think he gets a lot of flack when he probably shouldn't. I think he does okay. There was a couple moments where, the Bouche bomb from Evan Bouchard. It's like, okay, it's a little corny for a national broadcast, but you know what? It's the Edmonton broadcast. They're going to be a little bit homery. We'll probably have the same thing when Edmonton plays in Vancouver on a weekday and they put out Shorthouse and Garrett to do the same thing. But even though Shorty's probably better, he's way better. Shorty's one of the best in the business, but then you're going to have John Garrett, who every opposing fan base complains about. Last resort, talking about power play one, having one-timers on both sides is the way to go. That, or if you really want Miller on that side as well, you need more movement on the power play. Yeah, I always advocate for more movement, and we really haven't seen much of a change from the Newell Brown power play of last year, right? It's basically the exact same so far. We'll see if, as they work together as a group, as they get more practices in, I'm sure they do have a 2-day break after the Detroit game on Saturday, so I'm sure they'll get a practice or two in there before they travel. So maybe they'll try to build up that power play over the season, right? This team has only had a handful of practices through training camp and the preseason together. So if you do want to implement these new systems, it will take some time, especially with all of the new bodies that you have in the lineup. Chris, what do you think of the too many men penalty? Didn't seem fair since the Oilers directed the puck towards the Canuck coming off the ice. The puck hit him. He wasn't involved in the play. Well, that is the rules. And it's something that I used to do when I played just like minor hockey. Because I would just think about it. I'd see guys changing, fire the puck at them. If it hits the guy coming on the ice before the other guy gets off, technically there's too many guys on the ice because the sixth guy had an impact on the play. It's kind of corny, but they always say, don't change when the puck is right in front of your bench. I think it's a fine call. But obviously I didn't like it. I wish it didn't happen. And the Canucks almost took another too many men penalty in overtime when Pettersson randomly jumped over the boards when there was already 3 guys out there and then just jumped right back on. So the too many men's need to get tightened up by the coaching staff here. Foxy Gaming, if the season ended now, the Canucks made it to the playoffs, even though half the league hasn't played, but all right, we'll take it. We'll take the positives. Marcus, do you think our offense was mad tonight or did we get goalied by Smith? I don't think the Canucks had a lot of high danger chances, right? I think that's probably they got a lot of shots and they kind of kept up. And I think it was sort of the same with Edmonton. There was a lot of shots. I don't know if there was a lot of high danger chances. If I pull up advanced stats or natural stat trick here, I want to see the expected goals. Expected goals were at 5-on-5 at least were 2.4 for Edmonton and 1.5 for Vancouver. So that's just looking at expected goals based on shot location and number of shots. And if you look at the heat map, most of the Oilers shots were actually in quite tight. Meanwhile, lots of the Canucks had some scatter around the outside. So just off of expected goals, the Oilers had a better offense. But I think Smith definitely was really, really solid. Agam saying if the PP just moved around, everything would be fine. Yep, sort of sticking with this this power play topic here. Niels Hoaglander, somehow in here, who should be, in the locker room, maybe doing media. Can we just talk about how much our roster has changed in the past 14 months? Yeah, it's been a lot. It's absolutely crazy, right? You look back at the bubble. And by the way, if you're new here, I made a video like a month, 2 months ago saying, is this current team better than the bubble team from 2 years ago? So go give that a watch after this if you'd like. I'd really appreciate it. And yeah, it's been a lot of change. Moral saying, drop some likes for Parker. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Paul Kim, LOL, noticing Tucker Pullman is something you don't hear every day. Well, I said I didn't really notice him. I noticed him like twice, but he was absolutely just fine. Let's keep going here. Armin saying, I don't consider it an L, still got the point. That's why it's called an SOL, shootout loss. So the Canucks are still good. Victoria, I know that we lost, but it doesn't feel like one. And yeah, if it had been the other way around, it would have felt, if the Canucks were up 2-0 and then gave up the 2 goals to Edmonton, then Edmonton won in the shootout, we'd all be pretty sad about it. We'd be like, they blew it. But the Canucks were down early and they came back, they fought back, and they earned a point, right? They didn't lose a point in this one. They earned a point in this one, which is why we can sort of take the moral victory and be happy about this one. Anna saying, I think Miller was just trying to think too many steps ahead. I think he does this too. I think he overthinks things a little bit. Then saying, I like Garland and his spinnies. If he works at a couple things, he can cause some damage. Yeah, Garland beams of potential. He really looks like he's going to, like, if he puts all the pieces together and gets used to his new line mates and the new systems, he really has a lot of potential with this team. Agam saying, who would have thought the first Canuck to get revenge for Daniel would be Tyler Myers? That is an interesting one. Marcus, who do you think is our biggest goon now that McEwen is gone? They don't really have many, right? And I don't think that's a huge deal, especially when you look at a guy like McEwen and you say, okay, well, he doesn't really have a spot in the lineup. If you're not good enough to play, you're not good enough to stand up for your players, right? I like some of your guys' takes on this one. Who do you guys think the Canucks' biggest goon is on the squad? Sort of racking my brain here, and there aren't a lot, right? JT Miller's willing to scuff it up. We saw Horvat get into a bit of a scrum. Obviously not goons, though. Tyler Myers takes a lot of dumb penalties, but that's not really being a goon. But definitely an interesting question. Let's keep going here. Edmund saying, I still think we need Hamonic back. Yeah, Hamonic would add a lot to the team, right? I mean, we do have Kyle Burrows in the lineup. Having a guy like Hamonic would be helpful. Fangirl saying, do you think OEL can get 10 goals this season? Well, he only needs 9 more. I think he can, especially if he's getting a lot of power play time and he's able to keep getting those shots through. However, I don't think that should be the measure for his success. If he's good defensively, that is priority number 1. If he can put up 30 points in the process, then that's just gravy. Noah, thoughts on Zach McEwen getting claimed? Yeah, I put my video out this morning right before that got announced, which kind of sucked. I wasn't too surprised. And look, I mean, the Canucks are missing Tyler Mott, Brandon Sutter, and Brock Besser, all from their forward group, and Zach McEwen still had to go through waivers, right? There's too many bodies in the way, and guys that also could still get called up, like Phil DiGiuseppe, Nick Patan, Justin Dowling. There's so many fourth liners basically with this team that losing one isn't a big deal. Zach McEwen wasn't good last year. And he was really good before that. Like, he was a fan favorite, great fight in the preseason, but fan favorites, you still got to play the game. And he just looked mediocre. Basically, that's the level of player that you can replace, right? You can go out and you can sign a Phil DiGiuseppe for $750,000, and he's going to fill the same role, maybe even better. So I'm not too concerned about that. Time for Rocky saying Canucks had a lot of chances, but couldn't put the puck in the net. Why is that? Mike Smith was really good, and the chances weren't super high danger, right? We didn't have guys alone in front of the net like Jesse Puljujarvi was. They just weren't, a lot of stuff from the outside, a lot of chances at tips, but mainly Mike Smith was really, really good. Let's see here. Agam saying Höglander on pace for 164 points. That is true. We'll bring the scoreboard back up. Don't know why I didn't have that up for the last little while. But yeah, Höglander with the 2 assists. I realize now I broke it because all these extra logos are here, but just ignore the extra logos. But yeah, Höglander getting 2 first assists in this one on the OEL goal and the Hughes goal. Last resort, not game related. Do you want the Canucks to extend Besser before the offseason? Tired of waiting to the last moment for RFAs. Yeah, I agree. And this is something that we saw with Thatcher Demko, right? The Canucks went out and they re-signed Thatcher Demko to that $25 million contract before the season was over last year and locked it in. And that allowed them to go into free agency and say, okay, well, our only unsigned guys are Pettersson and Hughes, which again is still a lot of unknowns, but they knew how much money they had to spend on these unrestricted free agents. They went out and signed 28 players on day 1 of free agency. Basically really retooled the entire roster because they had that security of re-signing Pearson and re-signing Demko. High T saying, when will the Oilers invest in a starting goalie? I mean, look, Mike Smith was really good last year. They showed his numbers before the game. He was at like a 923 last year, and he was really good tonight. I think Mike Smith is a starting goalie this year and maybe next year. However, they're going to run out of that, right? And they still have Koskinen on the books. I don't know. It's going to be tricky. It's one of those things where it's a lot easier to draft and develop them, or you're going to have to go overpay like the Flames did for Jacob Markstrom. We're getting close to my cutoff here, I believe. Let's keep going here. Agam saying, Mike Smith must have genuine hatred for Vancouver. Turns into Patrick Waugh every time we play him. Yeah, he is really good against the Canucks for some reason. Let's see here. SK saying, if the Oilers weren't lucky, Petey would have 2 goals, 2 assists. He was on a different level. Yeah, Pettersson looked good. Pettersson looked really good, and it's a good sign, right? He hasn't played in 7 months. He hasn't played hockey really, other than a couple of preseason games. So it was good to see him show that he's still at his level, and get a couple more things right. Get those shots hitting the net a little bit more. Make those dangles that he's almost pulling off. He'll start pulling them off, and then he's going to be so dangerous. Parker, the other Parker White here. Thoughts on the refs? Noticed a lot of clear-cut penalties that should have been called. Trips in the high stick to OEL. Do you think they're too focused on cross checks? Yeah, this is interesting. I don't think the refs were really bad in one direction or the other. They did miss some things, but they also called a fair amount of things. There was that really obvious holding the stick by Kyler Yamamoto on Bo Horvat, kind of in front of the Oilers net, that I think they missed. I don't think they missed a lot though. And it might be that they're too focused on cross checks. And, the league always sort of makes these like, hey, we're going to focus in hyper on this thing. And then some other things might get left to the wayside, which is definitely something to keep track of. Time for Hockey says he wants to be the special teams coach because he has a great idea. All right. Well, go submit your application. Edmund, off topic but related to hockey. Will you get NHL 22 this Friday? Probably not. I don't have a new gen system, so I don't care about it that much. Agam saying at least the Canadian men's national team won. World Cup, we're coming. Yeah, absolutely excellent game. Alphonso Davies is so dumb. He's so good. Absolutely loved that. Absolutely loved watching that game. I don't watch soccer very often, but I was glued to the TV for that one. Timmy the Tambourine, what do you think the odds are that one of Besser, Miller, Myers, or a first-round pick get traded within the next year? First-round pick could be something to keep your eye on if the Canucks exceed expectations, right? They're shooting for a 3rd or 4th spot in the Pacific Division to make the playoffs. If we get near the trade deadline and the Canucks are like 1st or 2nd in the division, like let's say they have like 70 points through 50 games and it's looking like, oh man, or like 55 games even, it's like, man, this is like a 105-point team. Maybe they go out and say, look, we've kind of pushed the chips in with this Pettersson contract. We sort of have defined like a 3-year window to get good so he doesn't leave. Why don't we just go for it right now, right? Something to keep in mind on, which is scary, especially with how outrageous Colorado looks right now. But I did put in a bet for the Canucks to win the Stanley Cup a couple months ago. So if the Canucks win the Cup, I'll win like $400. So let's hope for that. Last Resort saying the umbrella doesn't work anymore in the power play because everyone can predict what will happen. It is predictable, but if your players are good enough, predictable doesn't matter that much because you have more players than the other team. It's like what we see with Washington, right? Kind of a different example, but everyone knows that they're going to give the puck to Ovechkin to absolutely fire from the top of the left circle. And they still do it every time, and it still works every time. You know why? Because they have more guys than the other team and they have other really dangerous options, right? Oh no, you put a guy on Ovechkin. Well, now it's a 4-on-3 on the other side of the ice and John Carlson's wide open to fire a shot, right? So it works if you have good enough players. They just need to be better at it. Scrolling through, we hit the cutoff, but I'll read some of the other comments as we wrap up here. Gary saying, Parker, this is awesome. I hope you do this after every Canucks game. That's the plan. This is going better than I thought it would, at least viewership wise. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. 170 people in here. Thank you guys very much for spending some time with me late on a Wednesday night. So the goal is to continue doing this after basically every game, unless I go to them, because then it gets a little bit iffy, but that's only going to be a couple of times. Rome saying, looked like Pettersson was frustrated with passes not hitting his wheelhouse. Yeah, I think that's fair. He's very picky about that wheelhouse, though. If it's an inch off, it's no good. Time for Hockey saying Podkolzin could be our goon. Manuel saying Myers could be our goon. Last Resort saying Myers is based on size. Sam saying Tyler Myers is a goof, not a goon. I kind of agree there. But anyways, let's wrap it up there. Nux fan 167 sports card saying, love this. Thank you everyone for coming and supporting. We're going to wrap up the show there. The plan was to do these for about half an hour. We're about 55 minutes in just because of how many people there are in here and how many questions you guys asked. So thank you guys very much for hanging out with me. I'm going to wrap up. I'm going to go to bed. If you missed any part of it and you want to catch up, because I can see the graph, a lot of you sort of trickle in over time. So if you missed any part of it, feel free to rewind back to the beginning. I'm going to also upload this onto podcast platforms, just like Canucks After Dark. So make sure you're subscribed here and go on to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast platform you like. Just search Parker's Pucks. It'll be there. I think it might be linked in the description. I'm not sure. Just search Parker's Pucks. It'll show up. Hit subscribe on the podcast version if you want to listen to the audio version the next day. It'll basically be the exact same, just without the video, without seeing my pretty face. Thank you guys very much for hanging out. Some goodbyes here. Anna, thank you. Good night. Last Resort. Victoria, Agam saying, see you guys at the film breakdown. Good night. Rome, good night, everyone. I will talk to you all in the next one. See you later.